This young orca called out desperately for her pod when she found herself stranded on sharp rocks. Unable to help her, her family could only watch. But what the rescuers achieved was nothing short of remarkable. In the early morning hours of a July day in 2015, whale researcher Eric Keane saw something rather extraordinary off the coast of British Columbia in Orca that was stranded on dry land. While doing fin whale research aboard the vessel Bangarang, Eric was attracted to some desperate calls from Andrew Rocks, where he found a young orca stuck between jagged rocks, her wails echoing across the water. By 7:30 that morning, Eric had called Whale Point, a local environmental group. The orca experts quickly realized what had happened. This was probably an unfortunate hunting accident. Orca pods were known to hunt seals in these waters with sophisticated coordination, some members driving their prey toward shore, while others ambushed in deep water. This young female had apparently miscalculated during such a hunt and, as the tide receded, found herself stuck between the rocks, desperate calls for help piercing the morning air. The rescue mobilized quickly. Janie Ray and Herman Muter of Save Our Seas, who commonly teamed up with Eric on research projects, were heading back from Hartley Bay when he made his urgent call. Realizing the severity of the circumstances, they immediately altered course toward Squally Channel, while contacting both the Gitchala Guardians at Hartley Bay and Fisheries and Oceans Canada, DFO, for further assistance. Eric and his team approached the stranded orca with a lot of caution. They knew that any rescue done would have to be in a gentle manner. The rocks were covered in barnacles, which had sharp edges that could give the whale serious injuries if they were to try and drag her forcibly off the rocks. Already she showed slight bleeding around her pectoral area and tail. When Janie and Herman arrived, they were able to relay some critical advice from DFO experts John Ford and Paul Cottrell. The priority was to keep the orca cool and wet until the rising tide could naturally free her. The task before them was overwhelming. Given that the next high tide was 8 hours away, the rescue team's work was going to be marathon-like as it kept this magnificent creature dry, protected from the elements, while waiting for nature's cycle to offer her a chance at freedom. At first, anxiety was palpable on the young orca. Fast, shallow breaths betrayed how out of character this was for such an otherwise powerful predator, awkwardly vulnerable, and surrounded by a sea of alien, fleshly creatures. Eric's ingenuity quickly turned a hose and duct tape into a makeshift water pump, he working from the island's far side as Herman directed life-giving seawater over the stranded whale. The rescue team gently laid down seawater-soaked sheets along the orca's body. Gradually, her distress calls quietened, her breathing stabilized, and an incredible trust began to build between the trapped whale and her human rescuers, even as her pod could only watch and vocalize from the nearby waters. Morning turned into an ordeal of stamina and timing. They developed a system where the team members took turns operating the pump and exchanging the warming sheets with fresh, cool ones. Special concern was given to her dorsal fin, which they covered with a pillowcase soaked in seawater taken from Eric's boat. Whereas the overcast sky had been a blessing in the morning, by noon those clouds broke apart and introduced another element of struggle as the sun pounded down relentlessly. Like nurses attending a feverish patient, the rescuers continued their watchful care, constantly renewing the protective coverings and providing a steady flow of cooling seawater over the body of the orca. The gravity of the situation wasn't lost on anyone, with the realization that had Eric not heard her initial cries, this could have been tragically different. Especially tender was the moment when the strong sunlight made them move to cover her head, a risky action they had avoided because they didn't want to panic her. Janie watched in a state of suspended animation as a team member carefully waded through the water, approaching the orca's head with painstaking slowness to place a wet sheet over it, carefully avoiding her blowhole. The orca's youth proved to be her salvation. At 9 years old, weighing approximately 7,000 pounds, the equivalent of a hippopotamus or 7 full-grown cows, she was still considered small for her species. This relatively modest size turned out to be in her favor. A fully grown male orca, weighing up to 16,000 pounds, might not have survived the same ordeal. The pressure on her internal organs, especially her lungs, would have been far more severe. Here, her youth and size offered hope as the rescuers waited for the tide's return. The critical moment occurred when the water pump finally gave up the ghost, refusing to revive despite Eric's determined efforts with duct tape. But then, fortune is smiling. The tide had now begun its return. After 9 hours of hard struggle, the water was finally at an adequate level to attempt the young orca's release. With measured grace, the team pulled off the protective sheets and pillowcase, realizing that all further action depended on the orca herself now. To prevent an early reaction from her, they withdrew to the top of a nearby cliff, heavy in their hearts with hope and silent urging. As the rising water gradually enveloped her body, the orca's vocalizations resumed, different now, carrying what seemed like anticipation. Yet she remained still, save for occasional tail movements that puzzled her watchful rescuers. Concern began to mount. Had the ordeal left her too exhausted? Were there hidden injuries they hadn't detected? But their worry proved unnecessary. These tail movements, they realized, were calculated tests of the water's depth. When she finally determined it was safe, she launched herself forward with 2 powerful thrusts, breaking free of her rocky prison. The air erupted with cheers and cries of, "You go, girl!" as the orca glided through the water, a testament to 9 hours of unwavering dedication and gentle care. But the drama wasn't quite over. Through Eric's hydrophone, they could hear her persistent calls echoing through the water, searching for her family. For a heart-stopping moment, only her voice carried through the depths. Had her pod abandoned hope after such a long separation? Then came the answer, faint at first but unmistakable, her family's calls reaching across the distance. The young orca responded immediately, charging toward the sound with renewed vigor, her joy palpable in every movement as she raced toward reunion. The rescuers stood together, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd accomplished. Each person had given everything they had to save this remarkable creature. As they watched her disappear into the distance, they knew they had been part of something extraordinary, a testament to what human compassion and determination can achieve when unified for a single, noble purpose. This day would remain etched in their memories, a reminder of the profound connection possible between humans and the wild creatures with whom we share our world. What a fantastic finish! If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.